Hi, I'm Grasie Mercedes, and welcome back to Not Blank Enough, a podcast about everyday insecurities and triumphs. Today's episode is with actor and director Melissa Fumero. We spoke about our shared shame around being Latina and not fluent in Spanish, her experience with ballet and body image, colorism in casting, and becoming a director. All this and more in today's episode titled Not Funny Enough. Hi, Melissa, and welcome to Not Blank Enough.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to talk to you. Thank you for doing this.
Oh my God, thank you for having me.
Let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. Where did you grow up? Where are you from?
I'm from New Jersey. I was born in West New York, right across the river. Then we moved and we lived in this tiny little town called Guttenberg that's like basically bumps right up against the Hudson. Then we moved to a little bit to a town called Lyndhurst when I was 6. And then I grew up there. And then I moved to New York when I was like 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you live in New York now? You live in Los Angeles?
No, I live in Los Angeles.
You live in LA. Okay.
Yeah.
And where's your family from?
I'm Cuban. My family is from Cuba. And they are high school sweethearts. My mom met my dad like very soon after she arrived. They've been together ever since, and they're like, weirdly still in love and very nauseatingly cute. My family, some of them went to Miami, but most of them went to New York.
Oh, okay.
So all of my cousins were scattered between Queens and Long Island and the Bronx. My family was the only one that moved to New Jersey because my dad worked in the city and didn't want to live in the city.
Okay. I get that.
And we made everybody come over our house for Noche Buena. I was like, all the New York cousins had to trek out to Jersey for their one family that lived there.
Do you have any siblings?
I have an older brother. What
was school like for you in New Jersey growing up?
I grew up around a lot of Italians, like the very stereotypical Jersey Italians.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, though, it felt very immigrant heavy. Like most of the kids I grew up with either had a parent or a grandparent with an accent. And whether it was Italian or Polish, or my best friend growing up, her dad was Greek. I never felt like too othered because my parents had thick accents, but I definitely was like, let's be real, like I pass for Italian, like a lot of Cubans do.
Yeah.
And my maiden name, weirdly enough, is Gallo. I kind of could assimilate and blend in. And I think I definitely felt like at times that I hid a little bit, like out of, I think, just instinct for life to be easier. Yeah, it wasn't until I got older that I was like, oh, I think there were a lot of racist people around me.
Yeah.
But they didn't maybe notice me as much. And talking to other like Latinos that I grew up with, it was different for them. Everybody had different experiences.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I feel like something very unique to people from the East Coast, specifically New York and New Jersey. I had a very similar thing where the white people I grew up around a lot of white people, but they were what I like to call ethnic white. They were like,
they're
Italian.
They're like, I'm Italian. I'm Irish.
Yes. And they have and with that, they have very similar family dynamics to Latinos, right? And so I never felt like, oh, I'm surrounded by all these white people the way I did later in life when I started being around, like, I don't want to say actual white people, but like white people who aren't that second generation.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And then you realize later, oh yeah, I guess I was othered and I was the only like dark-skinned girl sometimes, or the only Black girl, but I didn't feel like I was in a sea of white people necessarily.
Yes.
I grew up in Brooklyn and I was also around a lot of Hasidic Jews, which they were very othered from us. Like, you know, they were very separate and they live in their own kind of world and society. So everyone around me was like either Latin, Italian. My stepfather is Italian also. So I've been around Italians a lot. I
joke all the time that Italians are so much like Latinos. Like
they are.
The lines could not be blurrier. Like,
yeah. No, they totally are. And like, I grew up in a very Italian family and a very Dominican family. And there's so many lines that cross, right? And there's so many things that we do that are similar. It's always about big family. It's always about big meals and food and Catholicism. and all
everybody's loud.
Everyone's loud and fighting, and it's just the whole thing. So yeah, that's such an interesting dynamic that I feel like so few people understand. And they're like, oh yeah, no, it's very specific to an East Coast experience and upbringing.
Yeah.
Did you speak Spanish growing up, or did you speak Spanish?
My Spanish sucks.
So does mine. I don't feel so bad now.
Okay. No. I have so much. I'm working on it. I'm working on I have so much shame around it, right? Like Same. I spoke it when I was very little. Obviously I lost it when I went to school because my older brother, when he started school, his teacher called my parents in. They kind of shamed my parents. They were like, what are you speaking to him at home? And they were like, oh, we speak Spanish. And they were like, it's really messing him up, because my brother would say like silly, stupid things. And this must've been like kindergarten or first grade. He'd say like, give me lo, or take it lo, or like things like that.
Yeah.
And the teacher scared my parents. So my parents stopped forcing us to speak Spanish back to them. So growing up, I grew up with having Spanish spoken to me a lot, but I always would answer in English. So I understand it fluently. And I just recently learned that this is like a form of bilingualism, that like your brain can hear it, but you just can't speak it as well. But my Spanish has gotten a lot better in the last few years because my husband is Cuban as well, and his parents barely speak English. I speak like really fucked up Spanish with them, and they just like understand me.
Do you see my face right now? Because like, I wish people could see me. I'm like mouth on the floor because I've never met another Latina who has the same exact story, like literally the same exact story. My mom got here when she was like 5 or 6. My dad got here and he was in his 20s, both from Dominican Republic. But when my mom had me, she was young. She was a teenager, and she was told, do not teach her Spanish because she'll get messed up in school. Same thing. I think it was something in the 80s, like something in the 70s and 80s where they were like, assimilate, don't speak Spanish, don't speak Spanish. And my grandmother didn't really speak English. And I grew up with my grandmother and my mom and my aunt. And so my grandmother always spoke to me in Spanish. I always answered in English. I completely understand Spanish. I minored in Spanish in college. And so I was kind of fluent back then. And then I really didn't use it after that. And so I am now taking lessons from a Spanish tutor.
Oh,
and she's kind of fascinated by the fact that I understand it all and can speak it, but get very stuck on more advanced vocabulary and get really stuck on like conjugating certain tenses. It's like kills me. It's like, I know the word, but I'm like, how do I conjugate it for past? You know what I mean? So it's a very similar thing, and same thing, ton of shame. And on the opposite spectrum of you, while you can pass for white or Italian, I can pass for African-American. And so I always felt like not Latina enough, and not like, I don't look like J-Lo and I don't speak Spanish. So how do I fit in? Which is something I've written about and dealing with still and still write about and have therapy about.
Oh my God. I mean, same. It's something that I think a lot of Latinos that don't grow up here don't get. It's like such a specific child of immigrants American thing. The shame is so like we are all of our own worst critics, and 100%. Especially in our own community. Like I just was in Puerto Rico recently, a few months ago, and the crew was so lovely, and they were like trying to get me to speak Spanish and I would speak a little Spanish, but then there was like one person that was like, oh yeah, like you have a little bit of American accent. And I was like, come on. Like, just call me a gringa now. Like, God damn it. And it's like, that's the thing is like, you grow up and then people find out you're Latin. They either try to they start speaking to you in Spanish, or that's the first question. Do you speak Spanish? And then you have to get into this kind of complicated answer. And then you feel embarrassed. And then you feel I'm not Latina enough. And it's a thing.
Yeah, we are 1000% our own worst critics within our community, which is frustrating. And I mean, every single time I feel that when they're like, oh, you're Dominican. And then like, oh, you speak Spanish. And then I'm like, well, and then just like, I can just see the disappointment on their face.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh,
even
God.
that like, well, you just did is like the same exact,
And I'm like, no, but I feel so connected to my people in every other way, shape and form. Like with the food and the dancing, the culture and the upbringing and the family dynamics, it's like no, I am Latina. Like, and it's frustrating because no other, I mean, as far as I know, no other ethnicity does that, right? Like,
no,
you're not less Italian if you don't speak Italian.
Hello. like literally.
None of them speak Italian. No. And so it's just like, I don't get why we do that to each other, but we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really hard. It sounds like me, you have had that feeling. Your blank has been not Latina enough at certain times of your life. Do you still feel like you're still dealing with that?
No, I feel like I've come a long way in my journey. Especially in the last decade. I think getting Brooklyn in a lot of ways and just the visibility of that. And it's, it's like, you don't want to look outward for that type of healing or validation, but it is powerful when, people are telling you, like, I've never seen someone that looks like me on screen who is not sexy and is a nerd and, playing this type of character. Yeah. And it's just like, oh, why have I been wasting all this time thinking I'm not enough? Right. Because also, like, the start of my career, I also didn't look Latina enough. Like, it was this very either, like you looked like J-Lo or you looked like the big lips and the
Sophia.
Yeah. Or like, I had that a lot too, but it was also like, but also she's not white. Like, it was always like, well, she doesn't look like, and just falling in between these spaces. So the beginning of my career was a lot of that. And most of the roles that I did book were Latin. Yeah, pretty much all of them. Whenever I was going up against somebody white, I wouldn't get it.
But isn't that telling though, right? You get it if you're going up, but then you go up against other Latin women and they're like, oh, she's Latin.
Oh, yeah.
But she could be white.
So it's almost, which I also recognize probably clicks a convenience box for a lot of folks too. Like I'm very aware of that.
Right.
I think it's also like just getting older and just like not wanting to waste time and energy on like bullshit anymore. And I've just, I think I've gotten to a place where I'm just like, let's all just stop policing each other's identities. You know what I mean? Like, I'm Latina. If you have a problem with that, that's on you. I don't care anymore. I've kind of gotten to that place with it.
I love it. It's funny you say that too, because when Deadline announced me getting Grand Crew, they had mentioned that I was Dominican in it. They're like Dominican American actress. Because of that, all these like Latin outlets picked up the story, which was really exciting and did feel validating in a sense of like, oh, like my people are supporting me.
Yeah.
I got so many messages of, this is so exciting to have one of us on the show. And it's almost like, oh, so you're accepting me as a Latina and I'm in an all Black cast because I am Black, I'm an Afro-Latina, and you're accepting that too. Like, it just felt like really like exciting.
It is. It's empowering.
And then people like on Twitter, like Gloria Calderon Collette, who I love, was so sweet and like reposted one of the articles and it was like, we have to support our Latina actresses. And it's just like, oh my God, yes, I feel like I belong finally. And you don't, want to get that validation outside yourself. And I 1000% have always been like, yeah, I'm Latina, whether you want to believe or not. But it was really nice to feel like, oh, now my community is like standing by me and saying, yes, she's one of us, and support her as well.
And it's really important because, especially like in media and in our industry, especially to like our Afro-Latino and Latino brothers and sisters, like have not paid enough attention. That just makes me so happy to hear.
It's like
had those feelings and that like, because I do think that there is much more awareness as opposed to like a few years ago now.
Yeah.
If we want people to understand that we are a diverse community, like we also all need to stand up and shout about our diversity, because that's how we will get humanized as a community to non-Latinos. And like, that's how people will start to see us and understand us more. And like, but we have to do that work first.
Right. Which
has to happen from the inside out.
Exactly. Which definitely is a newer thing. I feel like, I mean,
yes, very new.
Afro-Latina didn't exist when I was younger. So I never knew what to call myself. And I think a lot of Afro-Latinxes have that experience, and that you're told your whole life, you're whatever ethnicity you are. You're Dominican, you're Cuban, you're Puerto Rican. God forbid you say you're Black. like that was something growing up that was like, no, you're not Black, you're Dominican. But like, well, okay, yeah, but Dominican is an ethnicity and Black is a race. And clearly when you look at me, I'm Black. And now having our community finally be like, I'm Black and I'm proud and accepting what I am. And then having the non-Black ones being like, yes, they are part of our community as well. The Indigenous, it's just like, yes, can we please have more of this? But it is changing slowly, but surely it's changing, especially in Hollywood. I feel like
we're slowly slugging along and getting there inch by inch.
Yeah. So what was high school like for Melissa?
I would say in the grand scheme of things, high school wasn't too rough for me compared to other people. At that point in high school, I kind of had like two lives going on. I had like my high school life, and then I had my life at my dance studio. So I was a dancer growing up.
Oh, okay.
And by that point in high school, I was there every day, and it was a dance and theater school. And so I was there taking all my voice lessons and my acting classes and my dance classes, and I was teaching dance, and I was there like 5 to 6 days a week. So when I was at my dance school, I had some of my closest friends, some I'm still friends with. I feel like I was kind of my most authentic self there. Like that's where I could be like weird and funny and whatever. And, and then I just feel like high school, I was a little bit boy crazy and, kind of got along with everyone. I think people I went to school with would say I was popular, but I didn't feel popular because like, to me, the popular kids were like this like group of girls that to me was like, those are the popular girls. And I get along with them. And sometimes we hang out, but you know what I mean? Like
I'm not them,
but I'm not. Yeah. I had like this crew of guys that I hung out with. And then my one best girlfriend. Now looking back, I'm like, oh, I wish I had been a little bit more clicked into like that I was funny. Like, I'm an actor and like, and I was like, bitch, you should have been like some improv classes or like doing some, something like I was watching SNL every night, but for some reason I wasn't like
embracing that part of you.
Yeah. Like I wasn't identifying as like a comedy person when I clearly was, because it was all I watched and wanted to do. And, but like not, I don't know. It was weird.
Were there a lot of Latin comedians in the media?
No, maybe that's
like
it.
Female
yeah, maybe
or
that's
male,
why. Yeah.
Maybe a couple males, but like, if you don't see it, then sometimes it's hard to embrace it or like know that you can be it.
It's so funny you say that, because I remember when like Tina Fey and Amy Poehler took over Weekend Update and being really emotional about it, but also not feeling like it was for me.
Right.
I was just like, that is so amazing that two women are doing this and they're so fucking good and I'm obsessed with them.
Yeah.
But I never had the thought of like, oh, well, yeah, maybe it was that like subconsciously.
Yeah. How are your grades like?
I was like a solid B, a solid B and A. I didn't try that hard. That makes me sound like I was like very smart and I did enough to be like, that's probably like worth a B plus.
Right.
I didn't like strive for the A and I wasn't very academic. I just wanted to like live at my dance school. I just wanted to dance.
What kind of dance did you
and perform, and mostly ballet, jazz and modern and that kind of stuff.
So growing up, you wanted to be a dancer.
The career path I saw for myself was I was probably going to be like a chorus girl in musicals, dancing in the back, and maybe also like acting in plays. And I was going to do that for like 10 years. And then I was going to teach.
Oh, teach dance.
Teach dance or acting. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you always wanted to be an actor or a dancer, but it was more dance back then.
No, it was kind of even since I was little. It was it was kind of even because the reason I did musical theater was so that I didn't have to choose between dancing and acting.
Oh, wow. So you can sing too.
Not really. I mean, I guess the technical answer is I've had a lot of training. And so technically I can sing, but I'm not a singer, but I worked really hard to get myself to be a good enough singer so that I could keep dancing and acting. It was always like, that was the end game. It was just like, how do I not stop doing these two things that I don't
right.
choose between?
Do you still dance now?
No.
No.
Every time I try to give myself like a little quick bar or be like, can I still do a turn or can I still do this? My body goes, what are you doing?
Like, well, dancing's really hard on your body, right?
It's so hard on your body. Yeah. And it's like, it's almost like I feel my body like reject it and go, stop it before you hurt yourself. And I had a lot of injuries too as a dancer. Oh, wow. So maybe that there's some like sense memory trauma that comes up or something, but yeah, like, you know, I'll do like a little bar sometimes once in a while and that's it.
And so in that world of being a dancer, was there ever a blank that you can recall feeling?
Yeah, there was a point where, so this is pre-Misty Copeland. If Misty Copeland had existed when I was a teenager, that would have been life-changing for me because there was a period where I was so in love with ballet and I wanted to go to a more serious ballet school and I wanted to go to a performing arts high school and I wanted to do the whole thing. And then I went through puberty and I was like, oh, gone. Like at 13, just being 12 or 13, just being like, well, I guess I won't be a ballet dancer because my boobs are too big and my butt is too big. And I know how this goes. And so it's done. And I literally like gave up the dream like that because I knew there was no one with curves. There was no one. So
that makes me so sad. But it's exactly what we were just talking about with the comedian stuff. It's like, if you don't see it, like if you don't see it, then you're just
and
like,
and I knew I wasn't thin enough. And that also created some like eating stuff, you know, in high school, there was like a last ditch effort kind of just like, well, maybe I can get myself like skinny enough, you know?
And that's pretty common in the ballet world. No, I feel like I've heard that before, over and over again
extremely. Like actually the thing that snapped me out of I had an eating disorder, was watching a fellow dancer of mine almost die from like anorexia.
Oh my God.
And that was just like, that was the wake up call. And I stopped. It was like someone hit me really hard across the face and I went, oh, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Yeah.
I think one thing I've kind of always been good at is when I'm going through anything difficult is like, I'm pretty good at like digging really deep, going like, why am I doing this? Or why, you know, like what is really at the root of this? And I think I did that at that point and read a lot of self-help books and, but no, it really was just, I was scared out of it too.
Oh man, that's crazy. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Did you go to college? And if so, where did you go to college?
I did go to college. I went to NYU.
I went to NYU.
You did?
Yeah.
Are you a Tisch kid?
I'm not a Tisch kid though.
Okay.
I went to school for journalism at College of Arts and Science. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I went to Tisch. I was in the musical theater studio. I loved college. I had like the best experience. You know, I think I just got really lucky with the teachers I was matched with and the friends I found who are still my best friends today. I don't know. I think just being so immersed in the thing that I love so much was just like, it was really hard. And there was a lot of crying involved. But like, I took it so seriously. Like I didn't party. I was the girl, like while everyone was at the party, I was working on my lines. I was, you know, I was the most ambitious I had ever felt. I was with more Latinos than I had ever been with before, which was also its own experience too. Like going back to what we were talking about before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I worked really hard. I worked at Hershey Park 2 summers because you could make more money there than you could at Summer Stock. I turned down Summer Stock like twice to work there. Oh, it was also like the most poor I've ever been.
NYU is not cheap.
No. And my parents did not my parents emptied their savings.
Yeah.
And I lived at home my first year and saved up and worked at a catering company and worked at Hershey Park, saved up money. But it made me really like savvy with money because I could stretch $1. And also, thankfully, a lot of rich kids go to NYU. So somebody was always buying me a meal.
Oh, I love it. So yeah, we moved to the city when I was like 12. And so by the time I went to NYU, I was a full-on, Manhattan girl. But then when I started college, my family moved upstate New York. So I went into the dorms the first 2 years and then same thing, got an apartment with like 2 other people for my last 2 years. When I was like 16, I started doing coat check in a restaurant in the city, and I would make so much money. And then by 19, I was a hostess at another restaurant. And then, so I did a hostess and coat check. And then I started waiting table. So like in college, I was like the richest I ever was. I was going on vacations. I was making so much money. This is like pre 9/11. I'm aging myself, but like people spent a lot of money in New York, especially in Manhattan. And they would go to, I remember I worked at the Hudson Hotel as a cocktail waitress, and our cocktails were $12, which now that's normal. Back then that was like insane. And I would just make so much money because people were just ordering drink after drink after drink. So their bills were like $300. And oh, it was great. College is wonderful. It was a wonderful time.
It truly was. No, even though I was like so poor, I just had like the most fun. I think I grew the most, and I still think of that time very fondly.
With the school stuff and working your butt off, classes, shows, anything you did, were there any insecurities that popped up then? Were there any blanks that you were feeling at that time?
Because I was in a musical theater program, it was like, the singing stuff was always the thing that would cause me all of my anxiety attacks. But I also have to say, college is one of the times in my life that when I'm feeling insecure as an adult, I try to like reach back for the Melissa in college because I was so fucking confident.
I love it.
It was the most confident I've ever been in my life. And I think I wasn't cocky. Well, sometimes I think I was cocky, but I just was like that feeling of like, you're exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you should be doing. I was so focused. I loved so much everything I was doing. I loved being so challenged. And I was like so invigorated to like meet every challenge. And I don't know, I just was like, yeah, I'm a good fucking actor. I'm a good fucking dancer. Like, yeah, it was.
That's so refreshing.
I would get mad when I wouldn't get certain roles. Like, which now I'm just like, who the fuck did I think I was? Like, I was like, I cannot believe they did not give me that role. Like, I was that girl. And she quickly, as soon as like a year into like the real world of the industry, like quickly dismantled her. But like, she is like someone when I'm feeling really insecure, I'm like, Melissa, just be that bad bitch in college that you were. Just like stop doubting yourself and just be that fucking fool. Like just so confident, just so blindly confident. Just like, I'm good at this, you guys.
That's great. I mean, it's so funny you say that because I do feel like that's a time where most people are like really insecure and trying to figure out what they're doing is, it
makes no sense. No, I went through all that like in my 20s.
Yeah. Well, okay. So maybe college Melissa wasn't humble enough and then she needed to.
She got humbled real quick. She got taught some life
lessons. So yeah, tell me about that. What was it like after college pursuing this dream?
Well, I got very lucky in that I did book a job like right out of school. I booked a soap opera.
Oh, which one?
One Life to Live.
Ooh, I was a Channel 7 ABC.
Oh, okay.
All My Children, One Life to Live.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was on One Life to Live. It was a 4-year contract. So I was there for a little, like 4.5 years. That was a very tough working environment. That was like, I think the first kind of whack to the face because they don't really, it's like one take and you move on. Like, so many days you just leave work going, I just did the worst acting of my life and it's going to be on television and there's nothing I can do about it because they were like, great, you said all the words, we're moving on.
I've had other actors on here who've been on soaps. I've talked to some. When I was living in New York, my little, I would say dabbing my toe into the acting waters was All My Children. I feel like I met the casting director during one of those like casting director workshops we used to pay for and have back in the day.
Oh yeah.
They don't have anymore.
I met them at school doing one of those.
Yeah. Bob Lambert. Yeah. Oh my God. I still remember his name.
Oh my God.
I will never forget Bob Lambert. He was very nice to me. And I did like a nurse role on All My Children. And I remember I said the line, but kind of flubbed it, but they were just like, okay, next. And I was just like,
oh yeah.
What?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what do you mean? Yep. But yeah, I mean, I think soap opera actors literally have the hardest job in all of television because you have to learn a bazillion lines. Mm-hmm. You get one take and you work every day of the week, pretty much.
I didn't work every day. It was like kind of cushy. I worked like 2 or 3 days a week, and I'd go through periods where I worked every day, and it's a huge cast and it's a lot of different personalities. And you have like a roster of directors that rotate, and it's just, it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. And then, when I started auditioning, then I started to run into, I think I kind of started out like, oh, I'll audition for theater and I'll just like audition for everything. Cause I'm kind of like ethnic, but like ambiguous. And like, maybe she's Italian and white and maybe she's not. And then I started auditioning and it was like, oh, nobody thinks I'm white. Nobody. I was like, why don't I have more auditions? And like, my white castmates, like there's one in particular that I kind of would always compare myself to. So we had very like parallel paths kind of going, moving up, and she's wonderful and great and still works now. We went up against each other, I think once. And maybe that's why like the idea got in my head. And I think it was for a soap opera. And then after that, it was just like every pilot season, she would test every pilot season, have like so many auditions, and I would have like 5. And I was like, wait, what's happening? And right. And then as you go along in your career, there's a part of you that realizes like, oh, this is what they talk about when it's like systemic racism, right? It's like, it's a numbers game. Like, I'm behind just because my numbers are not as high. Like I'm not getting into as many rooms because they think I look a certain way. Yeah. That like messed with my head, I think, for a long time. And like I said, it was a much more stereotypical Latin look. I just felt like my hair wasn't curly enough. My lips weren't big enough. I wasn't dark enough sometimes, or sometimes I was too dark. So I did the soap opera, and then I had like 5-6 years of just really slow years of just like really hustling. I almost quit a bunch of times, thought about becoming a real estate broker. Like I think so many actors do. I don't know why that's the profession we default to sometimes. And it's like, I love houses and I'm good at talking to people.
Oh man. This is all in New York. Yeah.
This is all in New York. And then I was flying out for pilot season every year. And sometimes in the fall too, I would fly out. So I was kind of bouncing back and forth. My husband was still, I was married. I met my husband when I was really young. I met him when I was like 22 on the soap opera.
Oh, wow.
And got married at 25. Yeah, which is crazy.
Young.
It's so young. It's so young. Like I joke about it all the time. Like if I had a cousin at 25, I'd be like, I'm gonna get married. I'd be like, you're dumb. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm getting married. I was the first of my friends to get married. And but thankfully it worked out. We're still together and very happy. Yeah, I was struggling. And then the soap got canceled. And I think that whole last year in New York, they didn't have Steiner Studios yet. And I think it was like some gap years between like whatever tax program they had. There was just no work in New York.
In New York, yeah.
And the last like year I was in New York, every audition I had was on tape for Los Angeles. We just got to the point where we were like, well, we can run out of money real quick, or we can pack up our shit and our dog and go to LA and like stretch our money out a little longer and see what happens. And then we can say, well, at least like we tried. And so all my 20s were in New York, which is great. I think everyone should have like part of their 20s in New York.
New York is, your 20s is the best time to be in New York.
It's the best time to be in New York. Yeah.
When you don't care about living in a shoebox and,
no,
taking the subway at 3 a.m. Like that's when you should be in New York. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So even though it was hard, but it was also like a really fun time. But I think I was very fortunate because I had a really great partner that I was with and a really great circle of friends. But the professional stuff was tough.
Did it feel like you were lacking in something, or did you feel like, no, this is just the environment, I'm not getting the opportunities?
I think it waned back and forth. I definitely had moments where I was like, I don't think I'm good enough. Like maybe I'm just not that good at this. And then I had times where I was just like, how can I book anything if I don't get opportunities? If I don't get, especially like I had one pilot season where I had like 30 auditions.
Oh, wow.
every pilot season was like 10 auditions or less, you know? So I think it would kind of wax and wane. And I also, my manager, I've been with for really, since I was like 24, 25. And he was really great in those years too. It was like every year he would be like, this is your year. This is your year. This is the year things are going to change. You know? And he was actually, I think, one of the first people to be like, no, it's not you, it's the industry and it's the system and it's the way that it is built, not just in this industry, obviously across many industries and our government, but he's like, you just haven't had as many opportunities. Otherwise you would be at the same level as so-and-so, the person I would always kind of compare my path with.
And then you moved to Los Angeles.
And then I moved to Los Angeles.
And then how did that go?
And I booked Brooklyn a year later.
Wow. A year later? That's incredible. Okay. Tell me about that.
I had a crystal ball, girl.
A show based in New York. The irony.
I know. The irony is truly, truly. And my husband booked a show that shot in New York. And so he went back.
Oh God.
2 years after we got here.
Wow.
Around that time, the first year I got here, and it kind of started in New York a bit too. I was getting close to a lot of comedy stuff and I wasn't booking it. And so I was like, there's a disconnect here, something, I'm missing something, you know? So then I found a comedy coach. I did his comedy class. I did a session at Groundlings, and then just serendipitously, like after kind of doing all of that, like had my audition for Brooklyn, but I still was kind of in that place of like, I knew it was the Parks and Rec people. And I auditioned and it was like during a busy time. And I remember it went well and I had the call back and then I didn't hear anything for like a couple months. I auditioned in like November and like then in like end of January, early February, like they called and were like, you're screen testing. And I was like, oh, and it was like, you're going to screen test with Andy Samberg. And I was like,
oh my God.
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I went into it. I don't know what came over me. I was very calm that day. And I just was like, there is not a universe that exists where I book this job. So I didn't give two shits about anything.
That's why you got it.
And that's why I got it. I ended up having the best audition of my life.
Of course.
Thankfully, they did not tell me we were going to improv in the audition.
And
I remember we did the scenes. And they went well and I was having a great time. They're like, all right, we're going to do an improv. And literally in my mind, this was my attitude. I was like, okay, like, this will be interesting. Like it was like something took over me that day. And we did an improv and it went really well. I don't remember what the improv was about. I just remember at the end of the improv, Dan Gore says I did the joke at the end, but I remember it as I threw Andy a setup and he did the joke. But it was like a perfect ending. And everyone in the room just started laughing. Like that's how it ended.
Doesn't that feel good?
I walked out of that room. I called my husband and I was like, I just had the best audition of my life. I still didn't think I was going to get it. I still did not. I had no hopes.
Yeah.
I was like, I just wish every audition could be like that. I didn't get in my way. I didn't get in my head. I just was like having fun. Yeah. And then I remember there was a funny thing where they were like concerned I wouldn't look like tough enough or believable as a cop or something.
Oh God, Hollywood.
We had to send all these pictures or something like of me. We were like, I was like scouring my iPhoto looking for like, do I look tough in this picture? Like, and then, yeah, I think I found out like a week later.
That's such a Hollywood story. The whole, well, she looked tough enough. And it's also the whole thing of like,
also like Amy, I mean, Amy was tough in her own way, but like she also was very different at that point in the audition.
Okay. Yeah.
Which she became like, that happened later. But yeah, it's just funny that like, that was like the thing that almost didn't get me the job. And then she didn't end up being that anyway. Like Rosa did, like, you know, and it wouldn't have made sense for both of them to be. Yeah. Exactly. It's like, yeah, it's so funny to me. And then it was similar where it was like, we found out right before the upfronts. Like I remember I had one day I went shopping with my agent and bought a dress and then was like on a plane the next day.
Oh my God. They love to keep you waiting.
I was like, what is this? What is happening? And then I was back in New York and I was like, what? And my friend was the photographer at the upfront tent. And I was like, hi, Dave, this is Gracie. And he was like, it's great. Click, click, click. And I was like, this is so bizarre. It
really does happen overnight. It takes 13 years, but then it happens overnight. It takes forever and ever and ever.
It takes one yes.
And then it takes that one yes. And then literally overnight, your life changes and you are suddenly on a TV show. You're suddenly making more money than you've ever had. You suddenly, it just all happens that quick, but then it really doesn't, because it takes all these years of trying and auditioning and being rejected and being in class and everything else. That's so funny. Dan Gore was also in my auditions because Dan was of Grand Crew. And we also had to improvise at my chemistry read. And I had to do it with Nicole Byer. Yes, exactly. And it was over Zoom because, we're in this world now.
Oh my God.
And so my audition process was, in a way, I was like, oh God, I'm actually lucky that COVID's happening right now because I don't have to walk into a giant room full of producers for my producer session. My producer session was on Zoom and my testing was on Zoom. And before that, I had to just put myself on tape. I will never forget like a similar thing where I was like, okay, I'm going to do this with Nicole, who is hilarious and the funniest person ever.
Yeah.
We do our scenes, and similar thing where Phil and Dan were like, okay, we're going to improvise now.
Did you know?
I didn't know we were going to improvise. Okay. I kind of assumed we were going to improvise though, because I know who they are and that world. And I know Echo actually from improv. Like we both went through Iowa West at the same time.
Okay.
And I was on a team there, and then I went through UCB. So granted, this was all years ago. Like I stopped improvising, like, I don't know, 5, maybe 8 years ago now. And so I definitely felt like out of practice, but I just kind of zoned in on Nicole and we had the best time. And I just remember getting off that Zoom being like, well, probably won't get this. Maybe I will, because this character really feels like it's me. But you know what? That was the best audition I've ever had. Like I had so much fun playing with Nicole and improvising with Nicole. I was like, that was so much fun. If I actually get this job, oh my God, like I can't wait.
Yeah.
And that's literally what it's like on set every day. Well, because you directed an episode.
I did. I know. I loved watching you all because it reminded me of how we were on Brooklyn. And it just was like, and it's also such like that's always the biggest wild card when you start a new gig. It's just like, oh God, like what's the vibe going to be? Mm-hmm. And so I was just like, so happy for you all that like you all were like just vibing so hard with each other, and just that it was magical to watch, like just how well you all got along and how much you bounce off each other. And it was just really, really fun to.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. We truly love each other. It's ridiculous. We're so happy and so
it's the best.
Grateful that we get to do it again.
It should be. It's how it should be. It should be like that on every set.
There is that thing there. You're just like, how is there like 6 of us and we all love each other? Like, like, because you've heard so many horror stories of sets where someone's a diva, someone's grumpy.
You just assume there's going to be one, you know what I mean? And like, and then it's going to like infect the others, like how it does. And then, but it shouldn't be like that. And it's
no. Yeah. And so let's talk a little about directing. How did you transition into directing?
So I did this little job and I had a really terrible day on it. I was very mad at the director. And like we had a little argument, and I'm not that person. And he made me so mad. And so I was in the car on the way home and I was talking to my manager and I was like, look, he could have done this and then we would have made our day. And if we had done this, and if he had done this, and if he had shot it from here, then, and my manager was like, I think you should direct. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm so mad right now. That's not what this conversation is about. Right. And he was like, no, but I think you should. So he knew these guys that had this web series. He's like, go direct one of these episodes. And it's really easy. Every episode takes place in the front seat of a car. And so I had a lot of, I like collaborated with the writer and we came up with an idea, and I casted my 2 friends because I was like, I don't need to be directing strangers for the first time. So I was like, please do this. And they very graciously did. And then because I was like, maybe I don't like it. Like maybe I won't, I'll do it. And I'll be like, oh, this isn't for me. And I ended up loving it. And so I think that planted the seed. And then I I started observing a lot more at Brooklyn and asking to sit in Village or, asking. At that point, I think Rick was still a camera operator, Rick Page. And so I would he would kind of test me sometimes, or I would ask him like, oh, it's this many more setups, and then shadowing. But then we got canceled. And then when we got picked up to NBC, I chickened out because I was like, I don't know, new bosses, like maybe that's not going to go over well. Mm-hmm. But then Joe and Stephanie were like, yeah, no, you should ask. We put our names in. And I was like, oh, you did? And so then I put my name in and they said yes to all three of us, which was awesome. And Phil was the writer of my episode.
Oh, amazing.
And I think by that point, had I acted in his short yet? I think I had.
I saw that short. Well, we should say, okay, so Rick Page is the director of photography on Grand Crew, but also he worked on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yes.
And Phil is Phil Agusta Jackson, who's the creator of Grand Crew, but was also a writer on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yes.
And so you and Phil wrote it, right? Phil wrote and directed this short film?
Yeah, Phil wrote and directed this short film, and it was his first time directing.
Yes, I saw this short film. It is hilarious.
It's so great.
Loved it. Yeah.
It was so fun. And I think prior to that, because I'm a huge fan of Phil's. I always will be. I think he's so talented. I'm so excited to see all the amazing things that he does in his career. And he had this screening of because he also does music. He's crazy talented.
He's so talented.
Anyone who doesn't know, it's stupid. It's kind of annoying. And he had a screening for some music videos that he made of his music. I was so blown away. And I think that night I was like, I will act in anything. If you need me to show up and just be an extra, I just want you to know that I'm a fan and I think you're brilliant. And what? And so he was like, well, actually I wrote this short film. And I was like, done. I'm there. I am so there. So we did that. And then he happened to be the writer on my episode that I directed. So we were together for our first times up at bat directing.
That's amazing.
And he had also directed an episode of Brooklyn before me. So when I had to do my scenes, because I did learn that I don't like acting and directing at the same time.
I learned that too after my first short film.
I hate it. I hate it.
It's really hard. And
it's really hard.
And for me, I don't know how it ended up for you, but for me, I ended up hating my acting in it. And then feeling like I didn't go as far as I wanted to as a director because I also was in every scene of the short film I did, so which was just dumb. I was in every scene of it,
but good for you for going for it and doing it. Do you know what I mean? That takes
you live and you learn. But it was the most of the short film takes place in a doctor's office and in a gynecological office, and we were lucky enough. Planned Parenthood, we gave them a donation and they let us shoot in one of the Planned Parenthoods but they're only closed on Sunday. So we had to shoot all in one day. So I had to shoot 9.5 pages in which I'm in every scene. And I also directed it. And I was like, oh yeah, this was dumb. And I'll never do this again.
I literally just got sweaty, listening to you describe that. It just gave me so much anxiety.
So I learned that if I want to be in it, my second short film, I got a co-director so that I could be helped in the scenes that I was in. And then my third short film, I was like, I'm not going to be in this. I'm just going to direct it. I wrote it and directed it. And that was the most fun I ever had as a director.
Well, yeah, I got lucky that I kind of, when the day came that I had to do my scenes, I kind of knew immediately that I was like, oh, I'm not going to like this. I already hate this. The idea of it going in. So I just turned to Phil and I said, direct these scenes. Here are the shots.
Yeah.
Note me, tell me what you see.
Yeah.
It's the only way I'm going to get through this. And he was like, I got you. And I was like, great.
I love it.
Yeah.
The short film you did with Phil is called
Stolen Hearts.
Very good. Okay, great. So we'll have people check that out. We'll link it. Cool. So with the directing stuff, was there ever a blank you felt?
Oh, I definitely felt like I wasn't enough. I still do. I still feel like I'm faking it a lot. I think my strength, I guess, in doing it now and every time I show up is, even though I am totally faking it till I make it at times, I think I'm pretty open about it. And I just try to stay really collaborative. I'm not my way or the highway, or I'm here to, if someone has a better idea, I'd just do that. Which
I think is what makes a great director.
Which is, yeah, especially in television, I think, it's like, I think that's the strength, especially if you've been on the actor side of the camera is right. We've all experienced that, like the directors that come in understanding that they're walking into someone else's house and that they're just there to help steer the ship that week and hopefully make the show 5 to 10% better. Then that's a great week at work, and it's the guys who walk in and are like, I'm going to reinvent your wheel and, we're going to do this. And and then they lose the crew and they lose the actors and, and it's,
That's an important distinction that a lot of people outside of this business don't understand. I just learned from doing more television that a TV director is so different from a film director in that sense. Yeah. And like, if you want to have like what you're saying, like reinvent the wheel and have all the power and you should do film.
You should do film.
You should do film. And then if you want to be more collaborative
and maybe like pilots of things and like, that's
right. Like, but TV, I think also people don't know. And I say this to actors, especially like what people don't realize is that the writers and the showrunners have more of the quote unquote power in television. And the directors are, just there for the week as a hire to, help out that week, let's say. And so, there is such a difference. But what I loved about your directing when you directed Grand Crew was that you're an actor, right? So you get what it's like to be on our side of the camera and your notes were so great and specific because of that.
Thanks.
And I think a lot of directors, I actually think every TV director should take acting classes.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Cause it's really like, it's like someone once described it to me. It's like theater is a writer's medium, film is a director's medium, and TV is an actor's medium. Mm-hmm. It's really all about the performance in television. I'm certain shows, sure, you have more visual things, components or whatever, and not to say that it's not about the performance in theater and movies, but I don't know. I feel like you can still like sometimes see a beautiful film and the acting is like, okay, but like that just doesn't work in television. Like, it's like, if the acting is bad, the whole show is bad. Like,
well, with acting, with a movie, you're spending an hour and a half to 2 hours with these people. Well, now, and these days, 3 hours sometimes.
Right.
But with television, you're spending years with these people and it's all about these characters that you end up falling in love with and following for season after season, hopefully. So that completely makes sense. So today, how are you feeling and what's going on? Like, what are you up to these days?
So I just wrapped on Blockbuster, which is a new comedy with Randall Park that's coming to Netflix. It was created by Vanessa Ramos, who was a writer on Brooklyn and also Superstore and Kenan and a bunch of amazing things. She's one of the funniest people I've ever met. And she's a Latina from Texas.
Yeah.
And this is like her first pilot. And it's like doing the show and literally watching a person's dreams come true in real time. I will never forget it. It was so special. Like, she wrote this pilot, it got picked up, Netflix bought it. And she was like, yeah, it would be great for Timmy if we could get like a Randall Park type. And then they got Randall Park. And it was like,
oh my God.
And like, just along the way, like the whole thing just kept growing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so it was like every day on set, like she's sometimes had this look on her face of just like completely blown away. Like, is any of this real? It was so awesome.
That's incredible.
It's hilarious and it's heartfelt and it's about small business and community. And it's about the last Blockbuster on earth.
God, I still love Blockbuster.
Oh my God, me too. It was so fun watching every guest actor like walk onto the set for the first time.
I bet.
Every time people would be like, whoa.
Like my childhood.
Just like the one in my hometown. Yeah.
That's really cool. When does that come out? Do you know yet?
We don't know yet. Maybe the fall. We don't know yet. We don't have a date yet. So
okay, cool. Anything? And now you also have a baby, couple babies?
I have a couple babies. I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. So I have a pandemic baby and he's.
Oh, right. 2 is God. It's so crazy that a 2-year-old is a pandemic baby. Like
I know. It's really weird. Yeah. He was born like a month before we went into lockdown, which was really intense. And
yeah, I have a pandemic nephew. My nephew was born
So does he have like little social cues that are just like a little off?
He's just crazy. I don't know if that's because of the pandemic or not, but he is a wild child. And my older nephew is like, actually that's the same difference. He's about to be 6. He's the cutest thing ever, but the little one is a little maniac. And I don't think it's the pandemic though, because my sister was a little maniac when she was a kid. Okay. So I'm like, this is just karma.
Yeah. It also is like, sometimes you're like, maybe it's just him and he's got little quirks and like, or maybe it wasn't anything, but it's like, you just don't, sometimes he's like very social. And then other times he's like, everyone's going to kill me and we have to run for the hills. Like, I'm just like, why are you so scared of everything? Oh, maybe because you were born during a pandemic. I don't know. And he's very cautious too, which is different because my first was not at all. He didn't know. The first time I took him to a playground, he like didn't know what to do. It was really funny. He was already like a year and a half and he just stood in the middle of the playground and was like, what is this? Why? I don't want to go up those stairs. Why do you want me to go up the stairs? I'm like, I promise it's really fun up here. There's a slide. I don't know. Like,
yeah. That's so cute. You said your husband's also Cuban, yes?
Yes.
So you have little Cuban kids. And do they speak Spanish?
We're working on it.
Yeah.
It's much harder than we thought it would be.
Yeah. Does your husband speak Spanish?
He does. My husband's much more fluent than I am.
Okay.
He came when he was 8.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And like I said, his parents don't really speak much English. So he does most of the Spanish, but once they get into school, man,
it's hard, right?
It's hard. And then it's weird, I guess, because the older one mostly speaks in English, even though we're mostly doing Spanish with the little one and doing a better job, I thought, of like, whatever he watches, like it being, in Spanish and in English, he's just defaulting to he's like Spanglish, now he's kind of doing both, but he's defaulting to English so much more. And so I know as soon as he goes to preschool, it's like over.
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure out like a tutor situation or something.
It really is hard. I feel like unless the parents don't speak English, right? Because then the kid has no choice.
Well, it's just like, it sounds easier said than done, but like you have to at least one parent has to commit to 24/7 only in Spanish ever. Mm-hmm. And then you also have to like control what they watch and read also has to be in Spanish. And like, you can do it, but like, and truth, like full transparency, like I just don't have it in me. Like I just don't.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. And I'm just not that person.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to figure out somebody that I can pay money. I don't know.
Well, I also think I also think they won't go through the Latino shame that we did because it's just a different time. And now
it's a different time.
Yeah. Now we don't expect kids, I don't think once they're second, third generation to speak the language anyway. And it's more like, I don't know. It's just a different time. And I think the stigma is more like our generation where it's just
I do want to figure it out. And I'm hoping, growing up in Los Angeles too, like I have a lot of friends who grew up in Los Angeles. So like Randall speaks some Spanish just from growing up in Los Angeles, know, I'm hoping, that kind of rubs off, but their comprehension is they do have a little bit of the bilingual brain because they understand the older one is getting worse, but like they do understand a good portion of it. So we're just trying to figure out a way to course correct. Yeah.
And to start to wrap up, was there ever, or is there now a blank that relates to motherhood for you?
Oh, I think, I know. I think when I first became a mother, yes, I was always, my oldest was really difficult also from like 0 to 3. He arrived very fiery. And I felt very ill-equipped and I read so many books and I cried a lot and I definitely did not feel like enough. It turned around and he got a lot better. And I think that was kind of really empowering for me. And then honestly, I think having a baby in the pandemic and surviving that and surviving just the 4 of us being home with like a tiny baby and like adjusting with no help and nobody around and no family and no support, like for so many months, that I don't feel like that anymore. Like I feel very confident as a mother and as a parent. And I mean, that was just so hard. And then you get through it and you're just like, oh, like, yeah, you're like stronger and I think wiser because of it. I also just like, I feel like it's so hard to be a parent right now and I hate it. Like there's so many, I hate most, not all of like the parent and mommy blogs and the Instagram accounts. And I'm just like, stop telling people how to parent their kids. Like offer, like, I think it's the way you present it. Like, you know, there's one woman I follow that I really like, and she's always like, if your child does this, like, try this, or like, this is what worked with my kid today. Everything is very like, and that I'm cool with, like, that's awesome. But it's the ones that, you know, are like shaming parents for like, you know, if they choose to have their kid cry it out, like to sleep train or whatever, if you don't, you know, follow gentle parenting to a T, or like, you know, that you're like somehow damaging your child, like shut up. Can we just let people live and like, you know what I mean?
Do what
like,
they will need to do.
And like every child is different, and what works with one kid doesn't work with another. And like, just everyone's trying their best. So shut up.
I want us to name this episode. So like, for you, either a blank we already spoke about or something that's overarching that we haven't spoke about for you. Okay. We talked about points of not feeling Latina enough. Mm-hmm. We talked about during the ballerina stage, not feeling thin enough. Mm-hmm. We talked about definitely having some doubts after
not feeling good enough or funny enough,
or funny. Funny enough is it?
Funny enough.
Funny enough is one we haven't had actually, which I was always surprised we hadn't had because we spoke to a lot of comedians. Apparently they all think they're hilarious.
Like I joke that like Brooklyn was like going to the best comedy school I've ever been to, cause it just, they will make you better, and you will make them better also in some ways, you know? And so the moment it clicked for me, it's just like, oh, I don't have to be like them because I'm just me. Like, I just have to be me and my version, and be really specific about what makes Amy funny and what is her flavor of comedy, and trust that you are there for a reason. You deserve to be there just as much as everyone else. And that this job and the gift of working with these people who have maybe been honing their craft longer than you is that it's just going to make you so much better. It's just like, it's a gift, and just enjoy it. And I wish I hadn't spent so much time like freaking out about it. And just, you know, it was like the moment that clicked, and the moment I just started like leaning in and being more tuned in and seeing more was like when it all just kind of started getting really fun.
Well, this has been lovely. And I love that we're naming it Not Funny Enough, because we haven't had one of those. So that's great. And we totally can relate to each other on that so much, which is awesome.
So many parallels.
So many parallels from day one till now. I love it. Well, thank you, Melissa, for being on Not Blank Enough. It was so great to have you.
Thanks for having me. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Not Blank Enough. You can learn more about our guests in the show notes. Please subscribe to Not Blank Enough wherever you get your podcast. And if you like what you hear, please consider leaving a rate and review. You can also follow us on Instagram at Not Blank Enough Pod. Our show today was executive produced by Grasie Mercedes and Dave Hill, and produced by Douglas Sarine and Colleen Beasley. Not Blank Enough is a Gumption Pictures production.